Hi, this is Joe. Thanks for coming back for another video. In this video, we're going to start assembling the GSXR 750 back together. One of the first things we have to do is re-grease the needle bearings and the swing arm. I've already greased the needle bearings on the shock mount, the rear shock mount. Now we're going to put grease on the needle bearings on the actual swing arm. I'll show you how we're going to do that. And then we can start doing some work on the frame. So let's get started. When you're working with the needle bearings, they are just loosely set in a race and held in by grease. So we're going to get some new grease, and you want to be very gentle. You don't want to disrupt the grease or the needle bearings will fall. So if they do happen to slip out, you want to put the needle bearings back in the race. But what we're doing here is we're just re-greasing the needle bearings, and then there's a bearing surface. We can then make sure this is clean, no scoring, and then we can insert the race back in. The bolt to the swing arm actually goes through this point right here. On the other side, we can pull out the race, and we can go ahead and we can move over and grease the other side. Again, if you disrupt any of the needle bearings, gently put them back in place. And then we can put the bearing race back in. And now we have the swing arm lubed and ready to mount onto the bike. But we have to do one more thing before we mount the swing arm. We're looking at the right-hand side of the frame that's mounted to the motor. And originally, when I purchased this bike, it had some crash bars on the side. They were pretty well beat up, so I removed them. But as you notice here, this bolt is really long. And let me show you, there's another bolt on the other side of the frame that's really long. That's the outcome of those crash bars. So I've checked with Suzuki to get a new bolt of the correct length. They want over $10 for that bolt. Looking on McMaster Car, they want $3 and something for the bolt. But then they charge $6 to $9 for shipping. So that's really not acceptable either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this bolt. I'm going to cut it and rethread it and save myself some money on that. Let me move the camera over. We'll look at on the other side the other bolt that I have to shorten and rethread. On the left hand side of the frame, there's another bolt. As you can see, this bolt is sticking out quite a ways. We're going to have to cut the end of that bolt off so we can get a flush mount. So we have two bolts that we have to cut, and more than likely just have to clean up the threads on this one. On the longer bolt, we're going to have to rethread because we're cutting past the point of the threads. So let's go ahead and pull these bolts, and we'll put them in the vise. We'll cut them, and then we'll rethread the bolts. We have the large bolt cut. We have the small bolt cut. What we've done after we've cut them is we've taken the edge and rolled it on a belt sander to bevel the edge on both of these bolts. Now we can take a 10 millimeter die with a thread pitch of 1.25, and we can thread this end. I've already tested this out after sanding it on the belt sander, and it fits fine into the threads. So now we can thread this end, and then we can finish up the assembling of the frame to the motor.